Hey guys, how are you doing? So we're talking about 3 more VP types. We've talked about so far the monotransitive, which is the type of verb phrase that has the main verb and a direct object. The direct object we know because it always receives the action of the verb. So these are the types that are very common in English. If you say Mary watered the plants, Mary is the subject of the sentence, watered the plants is the predicate, watered, the thing that's showing the past tense, is the verb of the sentence, and the plants are receiving the action of watering. So they're the direct object. So that'd be a typical type of monotransitive verb phrase. And we also saw that you can have intransitive verb phrases. So you can have a sentence that is made up of just a subject and a single verb. There's no direct object, there's nothing following it, it's only the verb itself. So if you said something like, time passed, so the subject of that sentence, what it's about is time, and past must therefore be the predicate of the sentence. We know that the subject always in English precedes the predicate, and together they comprise a sentence. So time passed, there's no direct object there. There's nothing following the verb there. So that's how we know that that example is intransitive. In other words, it's not transitive. It doesn't have something coming after it. Okay, and we also saw that there are the possibility of ditransitives. So in other words, not one object, monotransitive, not transitive, intransitive, but 2 objects, ditransitive. So remember that the ditransitives were the ones that can occur in the 2 forms. So for example, if you always think about typical examples of these different types of verb phrases, that will help you to compare the sentence that you're looking at to know, okay, is it that type or is that other type, you know? So sort of typical example of a ditransitive is the verb give. So if you say, John gave some money to the cause. John gave some money to the cause. You know that John is the subject of the sentence, and so gave some money to the cause is going to be the predicate of the sentence. And if you think about some money, that seems to be receiving the action of the verb. It's the thing that is given. And then if you think about to the cause, what is that doing there? To the cause is the recipient of the direct object, right? The cause is the place or the organization that receives the money. So just as we could have said it that way, we also could have said John gave the cause some money. That would have meant exactly the same thing. So keep in mind, when you have the ditransitives, you have the option of having the direct object, then the indirect object, or the indirect object followed by the direct object. But you'll always know what the direct object is because it's always receiving the action of the verb, and you'll always know what the indirect object is because it is always receiving the direct object. Okay, so let's look at some new types of verb phrases that I was mentioning. We have what we call intensive verb phrases. So this would be, for example, if you have a sentence like, Anna is sick. Okay, so if you think about that sentence, Anna is sick, the subject of the sentence, who the sentence is about, is Anna. So we know that the rest of the sentence is going to comprise the predicate. Subject first and then predicate. So we have is sick. Looking at this, we could ask ourselves, well, do we have a main verb and a direct object here? Maybe this is monotransitive. So when you think about is and you think about sick, is it the case that sick is the direct object of is? So is the word sick receiving the action of being? That doesn't seem to make sense, right? It seems like we have a different semantic relationship going on here. So what seems to be going on is that this guy sick is describing the subject of the sentence. These are what we call subject complements. Okay, so we abbreviate that as SC. Subject complements can be of many different types. What they have in common is that they all refer back to the subject of the sentence. So, for example, if you said, the flowers are in the vase. Well, just looking at this on the surface, we know that the flowers is the subject. Okay, we've got, for the predicate then, are in the vase. Why would we not say that this is monotransitive, for example? Are could be the main verb, and then in the vase could be the direct object of the verb. Well, that doesn't seem to make sense according to the meaning of this sentence. If you say, in the vase is receiving the action of being, that doesn't seem to really describe anything, right? Certainly not talking about the meaning of this sentence. Instead, if you think about it intuitively, in the vase is describing the subject of the sentence. It has to go back to the subject of the sentence. So since that is the case, you have a subject complement, and therefore you have intensive. So whenever you have main verb followed by something that is going back to the subject, that thing is going to be the subject complement, and you're going to have intensive. You could also have a sentence like, the new student is the leader. The new student is the leader. We know that the subject of that sentence is going to be the new student. That's the person doing the action, or it's what the sentence is about, who the sentence is about. So the new student is going to be our subject, and then we've got is the leader. Well, is the leader taking the action from the verb is? It doesn't even seem to make sense to say that is describing an action, right? Because is more describing a state of being. It doesn't describe something that's happening in time, an event. It's describing the way that things are. So, the new student is the leader. Aha. The leader in this sentence is going back to the subject of the sentence. The new student is the same person as the leader. So you would say this if someone were familiar with the new student, but let's say they didn't know yet that that person is the new leader, right? And then you're conveying that information, the new student is the leader. So the leader, subject complement, because it goes back to talking about the subject of the sentence, the new student. Compare that with another sentence where all you need to do is change the verb of the sentence. If you just change the verb of the sentence, then you completely change the meaning of the whole sentence. So if you have something like, the new student hit the leader, instead of the new student is the leader, we changed it to the new student hit the leader. Now you have a completely different meaning, because in this sentence, the leader is not going back to the new student, right? When you say the new student hit the leader, you imagine a scenario where the new student engages in the act of hitting, boom, someone, and that someone he hits is called the leader. But you don't get an image of the new student going, boom, hitting himself, which would be a possible meaning. You can say the new student hit himself, but that isn't the meaning that gets conveyed here. Why? Because when you have the verb hit, you necessarily have a monotransitive verb phrase. The leader is the direct object of the verb. It's the recipient of the action of hitting. So the leader is the one who gets hit here. That's because we varied the main verb. So what that is telling us is that you can have a sequence where you have the subject and then a verb and then let's say a noun phrase, like here the new student hit the leader. You won't know automatically whether that will be monotransitive or it could be something different. It could be intensive. So you have to think about the meaning of the sentence. That is crucial in doing the verb phrase analysis. It all rests on what is that phrase doing in that particular sentence. The new student is the leader. The leader is referring back to the new student. The new student hit the leader, completely different meaning. The leader is receiving the action of the verb hit, and therefore you have a monotransitive example.